We're going to go through the third chapter, Lord willing, the third chapter of James. So James begins this third chapter and he says, "Let not many of you become teachers, my brethren." That's an interesting thing because you think you would like a lot of teachers. And there is one sense in which you do want to be teachers. The writer of Hebrews says, for the time, you ought to all be teachers. In other words, for the length of time you've been serving the Lord, for the length of time you've been into the Word, you ought to be a teacher. At least in some sense, I think we all are teachers. What do you think? But I think here James is probably talking about teachers in the sense of those who actively teach others in the congregation in that sense. Everybody should be a teacher in another way. You teach your children. Perhaps you teach your friends, if you can do that in a good way. So he says, don't let many of you become teachers, my brethren, knowing that as such, as teachers, we will incur a stricter judgment. Now I might mention too, I don't think he's talking about teachers like, don't be teachers like, Matt's wife is a teacher. That's great. Amy's a teacher. Others, we have a lot of teachers in our midst in one sense or another. That's great. But I don't think he's talking about that either. I think he is really talking about in the church setting, in the setting of the congregation. Probably he's thinking in terms of God will hold us accountable. Because, why? Because you're teaching others. That means you now have a responsibility that's rather unique. If you teach them wrongly, inaccurately, or inappropriately in some way, then that's going to come back against you. If you weren't teaching, you wouldn't have that problem, I guess. But as a teacher, you have extra sense of responsibility. And something I decided I needed to learn how to say when I was going to be a teacher of the Word, this Word, and that was, I needed to learn to say, I don't know. I grew up among preachers and teachers all my life who did not know how to say those words. And it often got them in trouble, I think, because they're always going to have an answer for everything, even when they don't really have a good answer. So it's better to, slide on by and be able to say to people, I don't know, or let's study on this, or let's work on it, or what do you think? Because I learned from others a great deal. I've learned from many of you over time. And when I'm listening to you, I'm listening to learn myself. How can I be a teacher if I'm not first a learner? And James has already said, remember we read it already, slow to speak and quick to hear. Okay, so listen, pay attention. And we owe that to others. That's another thing that I determined as a teacher, and that is that teachers ought always to have respect for those who are being taught. They have understanding too many times. You have to honor that. You have to understand that, recognize it. Don't disdain the very people that we're associated with. And I think I've seen a lot of teachers, preachers, a lot, who did not respect the people who were part of this whole matter. They didn't respect those who were the ones being taught. So I think that shouldn't be the case. Can't we all love and respect one another? Verse 2, he says, for we all stumble in many ways. Now watch. We all stumble in many ways. I think that means teachers too. We all goof up at times. We all make mistakes. Okay. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, okay, he is a perfect man, able to bridle the whole body as well. Now let's think about what he's saying here, because I think he's doing a really brilliant thing. James is saying we all make mistakes, we all stumble. And I know I have. And I've tried to be sensitive to my own goof-ups, to not ignore my goof-ups, somehow acknowledge and be fair that I've made a mistake. So I think that's important that we be able to do that as ministers and pastors and as people, period. We do make mistakes. Okay. And it's important to be able to recognize that we do. On the other hand, don't go around beating yourself up for a lifetime over mistakes you've made, whatever they are. You got to move on at some point, right? Trust it to the Lord. Put it to Him and say, I'm moving on. And we do have to do that. If we can, we need to talk with someone sometimes, or say, I'm sorry that I did this. It won't kill us to tell somebody that we're sorry we made a mistake. And that goes for preachers too. It doesn't matter who we are. We all have to stand by that same measure of reasonableness and righteousness. For we all stumble in many ways. James includes himself in that, and he was an apostle, so I figure that means I'm probably going to stumble in some ways. If anyone does not stumble in what he says, now he's going to focus on, he says we stumble in all kinds of ways, but if anybody doesn't stumble in his speech, in what he says, he is a perfect man. The word may better be, he is a complete person. He's a complete person, spiritually speaking, able to bridle the whole body as well. So it's interesting that James is focusing on one particular aspect of us as human beings, and he's talking about our speech, what we say. And what James is saying, he said, we have all these different issues at stake in our lives, and we all goof up at times, but if you want to really be complete, be the person who's mastered what they say. They've mastered the tongue. They've mastered what they say to people and what they say. In this case, he's talking about teaching too. I think we shouldn't lose sight of that. If anybody doesn't stumble in what he says, then wow, he's perfect. He's able to do everything else he needs to do. So he somehow chooses our speech as being sort of like a leading issue that could determine how well we're going to do with everything else we got to deal with in life. And so I think that's really interesting. If you can be a person of good speech and you can manage what you say wisely and well, then you've reached a level where you can control other aspects of humanity as well that you have to deal with in life. And he says you can bridle then the whole body. So I think what he's saying is this speech business may be the toughest thing we have to deal with when you get down to it. Interesting, isn't it? Verse 3. Now, here he's going to use some examples. This is a beautiful example, I think. Now, if we put the bits into the horses' mouths so that they will obey us, we direct their entire body as well. Notice this concept again. We put a bit in their mouths, so James is saying, look at this. You got this big old horse. We put a bit in their mouths, and we can control the whole body. So James is giving us some interesting wisdom here. If we can control speech and think about what we're saying, if we can master that part of it, probably we can master the whole body. We can master other issues that might come against us. Our speech betrays us first. Our speech may be the most difficult thing we have to deal with in life. So at least that seems to be what James is saying here to me. So he's using the example of putting bits in horses' mouths. Okay, so that's pretty much on track there. And they will obey us. We direct their entire bodies well. Verse 4. Look at ships too, he says. Even though they are so great, they're big, and they're driven by strong winds, still they're directed by a very small rudder. Wherever the inclination of the pilot desires. Isn't that interesting? So here you have this huge ship, and you have this little rudder thing, seems like, I guess they're made different sizes for different ships, but still, by comparison to the ship as overall, the rudder is really small. And he says that small item, if you can master it, you can get the whole ship to go where you want it to go. James is really big on this, our speech, what we say, what we speak, and what we teach, right? Because, again, he set this off by talking about teachers, those who teach others. And again, whether we're teaching formally, so to speak, in congregation, or whether we're teaching our children at home, or our friends, or our wives or husbands, or whatever we're teaching in some regard, do that well. And James says, you'll be able to manage your whole conduct of life if you can do that. Wow. The person who can manage his speech and control that is a perfect man. The word perfect there, not used so much in a technical sense of perfection, but more in the sense of completion. When you read the word perfect in the Bible, a lot of times the sense is you're a complete person. You got a whole person. You got it now. Okay. So let's continue then to verse 5. So also the tongue. So he's given us two examples, right, drawn from nature. He says, so also the tongue is a small part of the body, okay, and yet it boasts of great things. Wow. See how great a forest is set aflame by such a small fire. Now he's off on another example already, isn't he? So let's think about it. He's just been talking about the tongue in relationship to bits and horses' mouths and to this whole business of being able to control the body by it, right? He's talking about those things. Now he's talking about the tongue, and he says it's like a flame. And he says, see how great a forest is set aflame by such a small fire. Example, doesn't take a huge fire. In fact, fires don't start that way. They usually start with a small item, a small thing, so to speak. And then they grow, and look at how the horrific damage then that often is caused by a huge fire that started out with just a small spark. He said that's kind of like the tongue. So the tongue can do great good things, but on the other hand, the tongue can bring great damage and harm into our lives or into the lives of others or into a church. It doesn't matter who we are. Into a family. The tongue can do that. Isn't that interesting? Verse 6. And the tongue is a fire. Wow. He says it's the very world of iniquity. Now, we hope that's not the case for the Christian in his or her everyday life. But he's saying, in a general sense, the tongue is a fire, and it starts fires. And it's the very world of inequity, if you will, wrongdoing. The tongue is set among our members as that which defiles the entire body and sets on fire the course of our life and is set on fire by hell. Oh my goodness. Hey, James is very graphic, isn't he? That's really exciting. He just really gets into this stuff. And he would be an exciting guy to hear, don't you think? I think, be really, I heard James spoke this morning, and it was riveting. Well, what did he say? He said, well, your tongue is set on the course of hell, by hell. So anyway, it's pretty exciting stuff. By the way, for those of you who keep up with such things, this is I think the 12th use of the word Gehenna. And this is the only use of the word Gehenna in the New Testament that I think is not used by Jesus. So the word hell there is not necessarily hell like we normally think of it. But that's another subject. We'll talk about that. But anyway, this is used by James. And he was from that part of the country, and he would have known about Gehenna and all that. So but his point is obvious enough, clear enough. And he says that, the tongue, back up if you will, Tony, to the first part of the verse. And he says the tongue is a fire. Boy, think of the fire, the damage it could cause, the fires it could get going. And it's the very world of iniquity. The tongue is set among our members as that which defiles the entire body and sets on fire the course of our life and is set on fire by hell itself. Wow, terrible. Now, keep in mind that that's one view of the whole business of tongue. That's the way it is with the world in large measure. And we run into that, don't we? In the world, we run into people who are deceitful, lying, evil, terrible, self-motivated, all these things. And how do you know? Well, probably the best way you know is by what they say and understanding what they're saying. Then, oh my goodness, it's pretty terrible then. So let's move on to verse 7 for just a moment then. For every species of beast and birds, of reptiles and creatures of the sea, is tamed and has been tamed by the human race. Oh, that's really neat, isn't it? Remember that God in the beginning placed mankind over the creation, and that's beautiful. He says, I'll go out and have dominion over all these different aspects of creation. That's wonderful. And here James has said, and he said, we've done that as a human race. We've pretty well got it under control here. And so that's very powerful. He says, we've done that. Verse 8, but no one can tame the tongue. It's worse than all those things somehow. Hey, are we getting the sense of what James is going for here? He says, it is a restless evil and full of deadly poison. By the way, that's not what's supposed to be going on with the Christian. And James is going to say that. He's not saying, every Christian, their tongue is full of deadly poison and restless evil. And no, that's not you today, I pray. Otherwise, my goodness, have we gained nothing by being in relationship to our God and to the Lord Jesus Christ? But James says, this is the way it is in the world. This is the way it is among people in the flesh and out here. And people will be deceitful, and sometimes restless evil you'll find, and even deadly poison you'll find. Ever seen that? Well, I think James would say, if you are a mature Christian, you don't just coddle up to that. When you do see things that are not good, and people, you can judge it best by the language, the tongue, and what they're saying. But if you begin to sense, hey, this person is being poisonous. They're not doing things to the edifying and good. And now, mind you, I think most people of poisonous character don't usually come to you and say, I need to talk to you for a moment. First, I want to let you know I'm a person of poisonous character. I say awful things, and my purpose for this is to injure you in some emotional or spiritual way. How many come to you that way? They don't, do they? And as mature Christians, you have to realize the person, maybe even not intentionally. Sometimes we say things that are wrong or harmful to our brothers, our sisters, or others, and we're doing it maybe not with bad intent. And sometimes you don't know, maybe it is bad intent. But the end result is still bad either way. But usually it's going to become with the person saying, oh, I love you, and now. And then their words are not good. They're not edifying. Remember, Paul said in 1 Corinthians 14, let all things be done unto edification. We might say, well, let all things be done, said. Let all things be said unto edification. So as Christians, we should grow up. Sometimes I see on television or here on the radio, you hear these preachers and sometimes others, and you listen to them and you begin to think, they're making all the right moves, but something's not right about this. And it's not wrong as Christians to become mature enough that we can have some judgment to where we could hear things or see things in people and say, I don't feel good about that. There's something wrong here. It isn't right. Otherwise, do we have any wisdom at all? What are Christians just totally vulnerable? Anybody who comes along and says, I love you, we immediately say, okay, well, wait a minute. And we want to take people at their word, but we can judge ourselves, we can judge others by their words. And sometimes I see things like on television or the radio, and I think, what's wrong with this? It's not wrong of you to realize that. It's not wrong. And sometimes I see Christians think, well, should I feel that way? I shouldn't be. No, you should. Jesus was not a fool. He met the people of his day, and with the judgment of God and the power of the Spirit of God within him, he had discernment and recognition that not everything is right. And occasionally, he just, He stopped them, and said, wait a minute. He rebuked Peter, for goodness sakes. Poor guy. He was a great guy, but he was forever jumping in and getting himself in trouble, wasn't he? Well, what did Jesus do? He reproved him at times, or reproofed, if you will, him. And so that's very important. Nowadays, I think one of the biggest problems we have about tongues and Christians is judge what we're saying about the teaching. Remember, we don't want to be everybody teachers, because that's serious business. And sometimes there are people teaching the Bible out here, and I have to say it, I'm sorry, they don't know what they're talking about. But it doesn't keep them from talking. And so here they come. They're just rolling down the way. Well, be mature as Christians. That's something that you need to be. All of us need to be. And there's nothing wrong. In fact, it's very right to hear somebody and say, that's just not right. I'm sorry, but that's not right. Or forget that. And there are times that we just need to stand against it. Now these people out here today, unlike Jesus when he was dealing head to head with some of them, he could reprove them and say, whoa, stop it. Now there's nobody much to stop people. They just keep rolling. But that doesn't mean as mature Christians, you shouldn't be able to discern and have sensibility and spirit. And in truth, know your Bible enough to know when somebody's not speaking right according to the truth. That's important. It's important to you, to your families, to your children. You got to make that judgment. So never feel bad, and if something's troubling you, or if you see things just aren't right. Do you really need that? I come to the place, I don't even flip on some of these folks. I think they just very frustrating, irritating, because here they don't even know who God really is, but they're going to tell you all the deep things of the Bible. Well, that's a bit troubling, really, And so I don't know. But anyway, verse 9. With that tongue, we bless our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men, who have been made in the likeness of God. So isn't it interesting then that's James is saying, that doesn't work, that doesn't seem to make sense. Why would we with one tongue bless God and say, oh God, we love you, and then we curse men who are made in the image of God? So that's really interesting, isn't it? Okay. We shouldn't even curse our enemies according to Jesus, remember? Pray for them who persecute you and spitefully use you. Wow, that's something to say. Now that doesn't mean you put up with it all. It doesn't mean there's not a time you don't draw lines. Just because you're be kind to your enemies, okay, that's nice. But you're not going to allow them to come in and loot your house, are you? Well, anytime you want to just come in, loot my house, take my food, run off, whatever you want to do. We don't do that. Well, spiritually speaking, we should have that same sense of protectiveness for ourselves, our lives, our homes, our families, our church. We don't want to just, anybody that wants to say anything, yeah, okay, good. No. You don't want to curse people in that sense. They've got a problem. There are problems with God, but God's people need enough understanding and wisdom to be able to stand against error, confusion, and we need to be educated, if you will, accurately educated in the things of God enough that we can do that. Verse 10. From the same mouth come both blessings and cursings. My brethren, these things ought not to be this way. Wow. So, okay. Verse 11. Does a fountain send out from the same opening both fresh and bitter water? Another example, right? James is great on teaching. So you get a sense of, if you were hearing James talk, he would be giving you a lot of these examples. But they're carefully chosen, by the way. And they're chosen to illustrate things that are already truth. I'm always frustrated, but, and you probably run into it too, some of the great proofs of things that aren't really biblical are examples. Well, you can come up with an example that illustrates things that aren't true. You can come up with examples, you think about that. You come up with examples of that would illustrate or give a picture of an idea that's not right. The whole nation of Ireland decided that God is actually three persons based on an example, because they couldn't get it out of the Bible. So what was the example? What happened? It was an example. Oh, looky, here's the way this is. And we've got a clover, a three-leaf clover. And there you go. See? Not see, but see? And so, oh, okay, we get it. Well, we just use an example to illustrate. I guess it's a nice little example. It just happens to be illustrating something that's not true. So never be mesmerized by examples that are non-scriptural and maybe illustrating something that's not accurate. You want to prove that? Sure. Okay, then what does it prove when you get a four-leaf clover? Remember those exciting little things? All of a sudden, God is now four persons. Oh, I get it. Okay. Well, wait a minute. Let's just get out of this example business and get back to the Bible. What do you think? It makes more sense. So anyway, James is used, does a fountain send forth from the same opening both fresh and bitter water? And the answer is, not generally. We don't see that. So actually, we should be one way or the other, I think he's saying. Verse 12, can a fig tree, my brethren, produce olives? I don't think so, not generally speaking. Or a vine produce figs? Nor can salt water produce fresh. So, very interesting, isn't it? In and of itself, we look at nature and we get examples of things that are true. And they're wonderful examples and they are wonderful truths. So, here we are. So, should we then as people be bringing forth out of our mouths things that are true and not true? Good and not good? Cursings and blessings? This isn't working, is it? James is brilliant. I love it. And this is great stuff. He didn't make it all up. I mean, remember who was his brother? There you go. If Jesus is your brother, you might have picked up a few things there. But God is his father, so that's the greatest thing. James is father. Verse 13 then. Who among you is wise and understanding? And that's kind of what I think James is saying to us today. Who among you is wise? Who among you has understanding? Let him show by his good behavior, your good conduct of life, the way you conduct your life. Okay, that's important. It's important to God. It's certainly important to you. So let him show by his good behavior his deeds in the gentleness of wisdom. Wow, wisdom is gentle and by its nature. But wisdom, as we said before, Jesus had more wisdom than anybody going. And yet at times, he was stopping those who were in error, wrong, and calling them out. He had to at times. It was that bad. We trust we don't have to do that when we gather here as people and calling each other out and all that. Save that for the ones who are really adversarial. And as I've said before, don't ever forget who your friends really are. We're gathering together as a people who love and seek for truth and understanding. And so we don't have to come at each other as though we were adversaries or enemies. Or we can deal with one another as brothers and sisters in the Lord. And that's great, with honor and love and respect. And that's excellent. So this is very good. By the way, where do you get this? Maybe we get another example of this freshwater, saltwater business and all that. When is a person very likely to be double-tongued? Ever heard? I'm not sure James used that, double-tongued. But anyway, maybe he didn't. But when is it? If I want to justify myself in my own bad behavior, all of a sudden, you will see all this language coming out of my mouth explaining why I'm okay. Amen? We've seen this, haven't we? So it's really interesting, and don't be fooled when you see whoever it may be, if it's me or it's your brother or it's somebody else. And they're saying, I know I'm doing this, that, and the other. I know that, but God doesn't care. Wait a minute. What kind of talk is this out of our mouths? Right? Well, God doesn't mind. Really? Isn't that interesting? Would we want to look to the Bible and see if he minds? Would we want to look to those people who were the first Christians and whom Jesus walked with and taught personally and see if he minds? Or do you suddenly decide God doesn't mind because you want to do things you know He really actually does mind? Well, okay. I love this one. Well, is it going to take my salvation away? Now, I don't know how to interpret that, but I think you mean by that, I want to be as evil as I can. I want to do just as awful as I can, and I don't want nobody to bother me about it. But, if it did take my salvation, then I might. You're wrong to begin with. What are you talking about? What is this whole language? What are you talking about? And we have actually a spirit of this going on, I think, in the religious world today and among evangelicals. Oh, God doesn't care about your sin. He loves you in spite of your sin. Well, okie dokie. Maybe we should be going back and reading the Scripture. And maybe you're using your mouth two ways. Oh, He's a God of wisdom, love, and wonder, and He's a God of righteousness, and Jesus is all about right. But I am, almost say, proud to be a sinner. I'm a sinner. I'm a good sinner. Well, okay, I don't know. So you have to think about these things. Let us learn the wisdom of God. And it makes every difference. Who among you is wise and understanding? Let him show by his good behavior, his good conduct of life, his deeds in the gentleness of wisdom, verse 14. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your heart, wow, don't be arrogant. Hey, there's a word for us, isn't it? Don't be arrogant. And so you lie against the truth. It doesn't matter what truth you're lying against. That's just not a good idea. If you're lying against the truth of who God is, that's not a good idea. Maybe we're in ignorance about that. We don't know, and God will kind of bear with us or help bring us along. But if I know better or should know better, and then I'm still lying about that, God's going to hold me accountable, I think. This is not a good situation. Likewise, the fellow who wants to justify himself in his own deeds or his own wrongful deeds or evil deeds, he's got this thing going too. Don't be arrogant and lie against the truth. If you're wrong, be wrong. Hey, I mentioned one time a lady in a church I was going to, and I remembered her ever since because I think it was most honorable. But she got involved in some things she shouldn't have been involved in at all, and she wound up leaving the church. And she could have been saying, I'm not wrong, God loves me anyway, and so on. She didn't say that. And she could have been saying, that church is just crummy. I don't think they're fair, and blah, blah. This goes on and on, right? What I remember about this woman was a different heart. She had a good heart. She was mixed up and she had problems. But she recognized she did. And I still remember her saying, I'm wrong. I'm just wrong. That's really good to be able to say. Some of the best words you'll ever say are, I am wrong, because now you're seeing yourself and acknowledging it. Even better words than those are the ones, I was wrong. That means you've now gotten out of wrong and moving on. So this is really good. But don't be arrogant. Don't lie against the truth. Who do you think you are? This is God we're talking about. Wow. Verse 16. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there is disorder and every evil thing. Oh my goodness. Verse 17. But the wisdom from above. See, we are talking about wisdom, aren't we? We're still talking about wisdom from above, as he mentioned in the first chapter. The wisdom that is from above, he says, above is first pure. Pure, that would mean not mixed. Like it's not salt water and fresh water. That wouldn't be the wisdom that comes from above. The wisdom that comes from above is not saying one thing out of one side of your mouth and something out of the other. The wisdom that's from above says all truth is important and we care about it. Right? But if you want to fudge and do your own thing, then out of the other side of my mouth, the wisdom that's fleshly and of this earth will be saying, oh, God doesn't care. Well, I don't know. I might not want to hear that from somebody who's got a problem. Okay? Let's look at the scripture. The wisdom from above is first pure, then it's peaceable. Wow. Gentle, reasonable, full of mercy and good fruits, full of mercy, full of good fruits, unwavering, and without hypocrisy. Guess what we're doing when we justify our own selves in our own evil deeds? We're just as hypocritical as we can be, aren't we? I don't think James would go along with that. I don't think he would approve of that at all. Verse 18. And the seed whose fruit is righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Peace with God, peace with our fellows, peace in truth, peace. Wow, very important. And the seed whose fruit is righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. By the way, the woman who said, I'm just wrong, I messed up, she did get right again. I think that was wonderful. She got clear of that. She went on. And actually, she was received by her church, and that was great. It was wonderful, and did good things in the remainder of her life. But if she had never acknowledged she was wrong, and she'd been speaking with forked tongue and saying out of one side of her mouth, oh, God doesn't care what I do, and I'm okay anyway, and this isn't wrong, or I'm not wrong, and so on, I don't know that she would ever have gotten right with God again, or ever have been useful in the work of the gospel again. Because God can't use you when you're like what James is describing on the negative side here today. Anyway, and the seed whose fruit is righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. So you want to be a peaceful person, not an idiot, not foolish, not open to anything and everything, you know. You want to be on truth. Your first allegiance is to God, then to his people. But be willing then, and to your friends and neighbors in the world. You have concern with all this, but be firm and sure in what you're doing. Be firm. Be like Jesus. He was the Prince of Peace, right? We say. But if he was the Prince of Peace, there were still times that he stopped the adversary dead in his tracks. He didn't buy into what they were saying. We want to be like Jesus, then that's us. We need to be mature like him. Grow up in Christ, as Paul says in Ephesians 4. So verse 18, I think, is the conclusion of this. What do you think? Is it good or what? James was really, really good at this stuff, wasn't he? He had seen these things, he understood them, and he gave great wisdom to the people.